It's the Ross Tucker Football Podcast.
Yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Transaction Tuesday. Just like yesterday was the only Power Rankings Monday we'll have this season, this will be the only Transaction Tuesday. A little different because of the Labor Day holiday. We decided to do the Power Rankings ahead of time on Monday. Today, I'll go over all of the transactions from the weekend that was in the NFL. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years. Now I got a bunch of podcasts. We'll do the college draft podcast with Emery Hunt today. So fired up about college football. Saturday up at West Point was awesome. We will also do the Even Money podcast today, where it's our first week being graded, first week making our picks. Cannot wait. Always a blast with Steve Fezzik. We have been up a considerable amount over the last few years. Highly encourage you to listen to that show or watch it here on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. As you know, I'm giving a cameo style shout out to a YouTube subscriber every week. We are presented by DraftKings. That's America's #1 rated sportsbook app. And this is the #1 week that you should go ahead and download it and put the code Ross in. I'll tell you a little bit later as to exactly why that is. New week means new winners. First of all, we're all winners. We got NFL football this week, so we're all winners. Thursday night, Texans, Chiefs. I mean, we are all winners. But specifically, we'll have a new Spread the Word winner via social media on Friday. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, heck, even LinkedIn at this point. I think I'm Ross Tucker or LinkedIn. You can hit me up there. I accept everybody now. And you can also go on at RossTuckerPod on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and make sure you're hitting us up there as well. We're everywhere, baby. We are everywhere. And it is Madden Code Week 2, which means if you take advantage of the DraftKings Sportsbook app or any of our other sponsors for that matter, send me a screenshot, ross@rosstucker.com. You are automatically eligible to win the second of 6 Madden codes. I got codes. I got codes in different area codes. See, that totally ruins like the song. Some of you back in the day, you know what that song really says. It's not I got codes. I'll let you use your imagination a little bit. I have 2 new patrons, by the way. 2 new, I think we're done here, patrons. So you'll be hearing about them at the end of the show. I'll give them a quick shout out for their businesses. Nothing cooler than listener businesses, listener small businesses that we try to help because we are a small business. We know how hard it is. We are all in this together. So get the Madden, get the YouTube shout out, and get smart when it comes to the sickness, the disease that is pro football. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
All right, so Bri, this week is going to be, or today at least, is primarily about all the transactions that happened, right? I mean, we recorded Friday morning. We had the M-Dub bold predictions, which I encourage people to listen to. Then we went over what had happened to that point, which was not a lot. Most of the transactions went down Friday afternoon, Saturday all day. Sunday is when teams were adding guys and practice squad. And then yesterday as well, teams fine-tuning their week 1 roster. So we might do this from now on because we did the power rankings yesterday. So you can hear or watch exactly where your team stacks up. And then today, we're going to kind of summarize all the transactions from the weekend. Although I will say this, not as much or as many as there typically is. Not as big in news like the big trades. I mean, usually you get like Khalil Mack and these big moves, Laramie Tunsil. Not really. I mean, Clowney was the biggest, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So what I thought we would do, Bri, before we get into all the transactions, it's NFL week 1. You're crazy busy. I'm crazy busy. And I think sometimes our listeners would like to appreciate a little bit what our other jobs are and what we have to do. So this is week 1, Bri, for your quote unquote full-time job with Sports USA Radio, running the show, producing games. You guys do a couple games every Sunday. So if you could just break down, Bri, for our listeners, I know that they're interested. They like you. I don't know why, but they like you. And I think they're curious about some of the behind the scenes jobs in pro football. So we probably touched on this a couple years ago on an off-season podcast or whatever. But here you are. You're in the thick of it. You're getting calls, emails, texts all day. So I'll let you have the floor a little bit just to explain everything you got going this week and really moving forward.
Well, first of all, part of it is stuff that I'm doing this week for games that are coming up in 5 days. So we've got Seattle at Atlanta as our 1 o'clock Eastern game this Sunday, and then Joe Burrow's debut, Chargers at Bengals. So there's a lot going into getting ready for this week's game, including getting all the commercial logs, all the live reads that the announcers are going to read. Hey, today's game is brought to you by Geico, etc. And so it's just getting all that from our salespeople and getting that to the stadium guys and to the studio guys. So that's pretty easy. It's a little time consuming, but you just want to make sure everybody's on the same page with that. But then there's also an element of I'm working for these games, but at the same time, I'm also working 2 and 3 and 4 weeks out with the schedule. And that may be hiring crews who are going to be traveling to the games in weeks 2, 3, and 4, looking at what the best games are going to be. We had an instance last week where, and I know you were up in New York for the Army game. Well, we had Rams and Bills scheduled for week 3. And then we started looking at all the COVID restrictions, and we're not driving in like you were driving from New York, from Pennsylvania up to New York. And we just said, you know what? With all the restrictions, it may not be worth it. So let's pivot and go do another game. And so there's a lot of that with the COVID restrictions right now, just trying to figure out what, maybe New York State or the state of Massachusetts, maybe we're just going to hold off right now with some of the restrictions there. So it's just dealing a lot with what's going on this week, and then a lot with what's going on in the upcoming weeks. Like I said, hiring crews, just getting all the technical stuff ready for the games. So making sure that the internet and all of our other technical needs at the stadiums are in. They're also moving some of our broadcast booths at some of the NFL stadiums. So, for example, in Cleveland, where we're going to be in a couple of weeks, you're not going to be in your regular booth. Okay, well, why not? Well, the coaches have to spread out, so we need to give the coaches the home and visiting radio booths, and then the home radio is going to get moved to where the national is, and we're going to put you somewhere else. Okay, well that's all fine and good. We don't care, but we need to make sure that all of our feeds, so we can hear the referee, so we can get our internet, so we can get everything else. That's got to be in wherever they're going to put us. So it's just staying on top of a lot of different things. And this year is unlike any other year. And I know the most important question that you're going to ask is, what about press box food? And I have already asked that to both the Falcons and to the Bengals. And it is prepackaged, grab and go, no buffets.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no question. So, I had my first experience with that at Army on Saturday. Even the CBS crew meal ahead of time was, a boxed meal. And then Army themselves had a boxed lunch. So basically I had the CBS crew meal for pregame, and then I had the Army boxed lunch at halftime. That's kind of how I
Is that MRE? What?
What's that?
Is that an MRE?
MRE.
Meals ready to eat when they give the soldiers in the field?
Oh, no, I don't think so. No. It was a chicken Caesar wrap. I don't know. Maybe they're calling it MRE, but it was a chicken. You know what? It was actually pretty good. It was actually a pretty good chicken Caesar wrap. And before the game, the CBS crew meal had like pulled pork, mac and cheese. I mean, it was not great, but I appreciate the effort. I mean, it was a warm boxed meal before the game,
Pretty
which I
impressive
thought
for a
was
box meal.
what's that?
That's pretty impressive for a box meal.
Right, I know, and they had like beans with it and cornbread. I mean, it was have a little something for the effort is kind of how I look at it. I want to get back to a couple of things you said, Bri, that I'm not sure all of our listeners would know about, but I also want to make sure that they're aware that when you're a broadcaster like me or the guys that you're hiring, Bri, you got to watch video of the teams that you're going to be calling before they play. Now, it's a little tough when it's the opener, but you got to watch and see what they're doing. And by far the best place to do that is NFL Game Pass. I've been a huge fan of it for a long time. It pretty much has everything I need in terms of the coach's copy, which you can check out the end zone feeds, which are great, or the sideline all 22. So you've got that, number one. Then number two, they've got the condensed versions of games where they not only cut out all the commercials, but they also cut out a lot of the time in between plays. It's basically like play, 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 play. I mean, you can watch an entire game, just the plays, in less than 45 minutes. You still see the penalties, etc. And here's the beauty of it. You can start a free trial, especially this year. Of all the years, since you're probably not going to a lot of other places right now, go to NFL.com/Game Pass to start your free trial today. NFL Game Pass, where football never stops. Absolutely love it. Can't wait to break down Thursday night's game, among others, moving forward. Very, very cool. All right. So, Bri, you said making sure the commercial log is right and the reads. So I think most of the listeners know what the reads are. The reads are like what I just did, right? So we get paid money from NFL Game Pass to do what I just did. That's a live read. So we get paid money for that. And it's the same thing, Brian, for your radio broadcasts. So I think people understand that, you know, when the announcer mentions something during a game. But explain the commercial log, Brian, for people that might not know.
All right. So when we're following the TV broadcast when it comes to commercials. So, you know, after a score, okay, well, we'll be back with 12 minutes and 3 seconds left in the first quarter. Saints over the Bucks, 7-0. We'll be back after this. Okay. Well, then we go away for 2 minutes. And as you're watching it on TV, they take commercials. Well, we do the same thing. We're at the mercy of television. We don't schedule our own commercials with that. Obviously, we got to, it's based on the flow of the game. And when TV decides to take their commercials, we go as well. So obviously we're paying attention to that. I'm paying attention to, there's a guy on the field right about the 25 or 30 yard line. And he's there's one guy who's a league official and he's wearing a fluorescent green hat. And standing right next to him is a guy with the TV network who is wearing these giant orange sleeves. And so when I see the guy with the orange sleeves cross his arms across his chest, that signifies to us that we got to get ready and go to a commercial break. So for 2 minutes there, then we know we're running commercials. So for what I got to do is I got to make sure we get those commercials, and then I got to get those commercials into our studio, into a system into our computers where when we say, all right, we'll be back after this, our guy at the studio hits a button and we play 2 minutes of commercials. It's pretty straightforward.
Got it. And then, so for me, so Brian does all of the behind the scenes stuff with travel and the crew and all the equipment that they need. And I mean, people don't realize, like, Brian, like, you bring the equipment with you.
Yes.
Like, that's a major deal.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't have anything to add to that.
I mean, I've seen it. Like, that is a workout in and of itself, is just getting all of the equipment into the radio booth. So Bri does a lot. So for me this week, I've got another college game. I'm calling Louisiana Monroe at Army on CBS Sports Network on Saturday at 1:30. I had an absolute blast up at West Point this past Saturday. So like already this morning, right? I have gone back and I watched the entire first half of my Army versus Middle Tennessee State game. to see what I did well, what I could have done better, etc. While I'm watching that, I'm reading all of the Louisiana Monroe game notes about their best players from last year, that are coming back, what they lost, what kind of offense they run, starting to try to memorize the depth chart, etc. Because we have a call with the Louisiana Monroe coaches tomorrow and a couple players to go over, what they're thinking about their first game this year. They actually missed their first game against Troy for COVID reasons. So this game against Army will be their opener for the season. So I'm reading all about Louisiana Monroe while I'm more or less listening. I'm kind of watching, but I'm more or less listening to my Army telecast from this past Saturday. So I'm getting ready for that. I've got all the podcasts as usual, the column for The Athletic. Actually going to be on a show for radio.com this week from 10 to 12 Eastern. It's called Bet Sweat. So we're kind of launching that show this week. And then I'll be in the booth Monday night for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Giants with Ian Eagle. Westwood won. It'll be my first Monday Night Football game in the booth. Really looking forward to it. I've obviously been on sideline quite a bit over the years. I think a lot of you guys have heard me on that, but I'll be in the booth Monday night. So in case I forget to tell you on Monday, if you want to listen to me and Ian Eagle as opposed to the television telecast audio, you can turn them down or mute them and listen to Ian and myself. Really looking forward to it. Should be a good game. See what.
Hey, I got a question for you, Ross. Tell me about, and I want to back up a second. You were in New York last weekend. You're going to New York again for 2 games this week. You got Army, and then as you're talking about the Giants, did you have any issues with COVID getting into the state? Did you have any? What was the protocols like once you got to the game?
So no, nothing. Well, first of all, the Giants, that's New Jersey. So that I'll just drive from Pennsylvania to New Jersey. So I won't be in New York on Monday.
But New York and New Jersey were somewhat similar in how they're operating with the restrictions, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, just in the sense that Pennsylvania is not one of their forbidden states or whatever. And I'm just driving. But I had to do a COVID test Friday morning for CBS by 8 a.m. because CBS does not let you work unless you're a confirmed COVID negative. So I had to do a COVID test Friday morning for CBS, and then I had to do a screening with Army West Point to get my visitor's pass for the weekend. And then game day, you get an email that says you're negative, you're good to go. And then there's an Army screening you have to go through. So they have it where they read your temperature as you walk in, and then you have to go and fill out paperwork that says you haven't left the country, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. And then you go, they look at the email that says you're negative, they compare it to your ID, and then they look at your screening thing and your temperature. You pass all those, then you get your credential to actually go in the game that day. But even then, you still have to go through the CBS has a second screening too. So I had to do both screenings before I could even get into the building. So I had double wristbands. I had like a yellow wristband and a red wristband to get in. Now, I don't think any of that stuff was New York State related. It's just Army's protocol because they're basically a bubble and it's an Army base, and CBS's protocol. For the New York, for the Giants game, I got an email. I think I have to take my temperature ahead of time and then take my temperature again when I get there on Monday night. And again, fill out paperwork and have a screening that says, don't have any symptoms, don't have a fever, haven't been around anybody that's had COVID, et cetera, et cetera. So that's basically the breakdown there. Speaking of the breakdown, Bri, I think some of our listeners should go ahead and break down and give ExpressVPN a try. ExpressVPN, it is a virtual personal network. It is awesome. Look, there's hundreds of VPNs out there, but ExpressVPN is ridiculously fast. You can stream everything in HD quality with zero buffering. And it works with many streaming services. So you got Netflix, Amazon Prime, BBC. It's so simple. You can fire up the ExpressVPN app, change your location, hit connect, refresh the page, and the show or movie you want to watch will magically appear. So if you like How I Met Your Mother, that's on Netflix Germany. You like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, that's Netflix Australia. Those are two of my shows right there. If you use my link right now at ExpressVPN.com/Tucker, you can get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. That's ExpressVPN.com/Tucker. Why not give it a shot? Check out some new shows and feel like you're safer if and when you're traveling or at a Starbucks or whatever. ExpressVPN.com/Tucker.
Tuck's Takes.
We've got a lot of transactions to get to, but let's start with the biggest one. You alluded to it earlier in the show. It's the Titans finding a way to sign defensive end Jadeveon Clowney, even though the Saints and to a lesser extent the Baltimore Ravens tried to make that happen. He's getting 1 year, $12 million.
Wow. I mean, so the big thing here, Bri, is this guy was offered a lot of $15 million a year deals, and he turned it down. Now, he had his reasons. I think, the rumor out there is that Jadeveon Clowney strongly dislikes training camp and didn't want to go to training camp. I don't know if he dislikes it like $3 million dislikes it, because he had other opportunities for $15 million a year, maybe even more. And yet he turned it down because he didn't want to go to training camp, or maybe he thought he could get more, or what have you. Maybe it was just he wanted to be on a better team. Look, there's a lot of different things. More power to him, but he cost himself a lot of money. There's no way around it. A lot of money. The Saints tried hard. They were trying to even like a sign and trade deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars, but it didn't work out. Didn't happen for them. They weren't able to get to the money that the Titans were. No state income tax in Tennessee like he was used to in Houston. And he's very comfortable, very familiar with Mike Vrabel, who was his D coordinator in Houston. So the familiarity, staying in the same division, going against a lot of the same opponents, being on what he clearly believes is a good team, I guess it was worth it to him. I mean, between Clowney and Ngakoue, we've got some guys passing up a lot of real money, like millions of dollars, to play for certain teams or to be where they want to be, I guess. It's kind of a new era, I think, Bri. I can't imagine many guys doing that back in my day. I mean, I guess these guys realize 15 million, 12 million, it's a ton of money either way, and I'm happy to take less to be where I want to be. More power to them.
Tuck's Takes.
Well, speaking of Houston, the other big news over the weekend came from Houston and Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson. He's getting 4 years, $160 million contract extension. And how great was that when they put his family on?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I've been so consistent, and you guys know this over the years, how much I love when guys get deals like this. When guys are able to change the path for their entire family for generations, it just gives me chills. You think about the time, the work that he put in to get to this point where he can make sure his family, extended family for generations, not only is financially secure, but has the freedom to do what they want to do, has the opportunities in life that they otherwise would not have had. It is so special, and he deserves it because he's a special young man. And I'm thrilled for him, thrilled for the Texans, thrilled for Texans fans. He deserves every penny. He's worth it.
Tuck's Takes.
Some other guys getting extensions include quarterback Tre'Davious White in Buffalo, Cam Hayward in Pittsburgh, Keenan Allen in Los Angeles with the Chargers, and DeAndre Hopkins now in Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, look, these guys all fall into the category I just described. Guys that are getting life-altering contracts. Now, for guys like Cam Hayward and DeAndre Hopkins, these are third deals for those guys. I mean, they already got big second deals. Now they're getting big third deals, which is really unbelievable. Tre'Davious White got the big second contract. Keenan Allen got the big second contract. And it's funny, Brian, these are the people whose names people know. You know, like these are the guys that get these deals. The guys that are able to be one of the top 5-10 players on their team, maybe one of the top 5-10 players at their position in the NFL. They get crazy big money and they're worth it because of where the salary cap is. These are the guys that make a significant difference in wins and losses.
Tuck's Takes.
Two items concerning quarterbacks. First, the Bears officially announced Mitch Trubisky as their starting quarterback, and Josh Rosen signed with the Tampa Bay Bucks on their practice squad after getting released by the Dolphins.
So number one, I think we talked about this Friday, that it had kind of leaked out that Trubisky was going to be the starter in Chicago. Maybe we didn't talk about that. Listen, I mean, it just makes the trade for Nick Foles. And my guess is, Trubisky controls it, right? Trubisky, if he plays well, he's going to keep the job. So Trubisky controls it, and he has a chance to take this job and run with it. And that'd be awesome for him if he did. I tend to think he'll have a pretty short leash. They're giving Nick Foles $21 million, fully guaranteed. They traded for Nick Foles. So I think unless Trubisky plays extremely well, which I don't think he will, I think that we'll see Foles sooner rather than later. And I think from the Bears' perspective, because you could look at it and say, wow, that trade definitely was not worth it for them, for the Bears. Well, I don't know what kind of footing Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy are on in Chicago. So, this is year 3 for Nagy. I don't know how long Pace has been there. So I'd like to think that they're not on thin ice, but just in case, I think they wanted to make sure they had another option this year. If things go south with Trubisky, maybe they can win a bunch of games with Foles or win enough games they can say, see, it's not our fault. It's the quarterback's fault. As for Rosen, I mean, think about that for a second, right? That the Dolphins have to pay him, I think, like $3 million, $3.5 million this year because his salary is guaranteed. It's his third-year salary as a top 10 pick. They got to pay that next year too. Now, what he gets from the Bucks on the practice squad will offset it, but that's $12,000 a week. I mean, what does that end up being over the course of the year? $150,000, something like that. I mean, that doesn't maybe a little bit more than that, but that doesn't really account for close to what he was going to get. So the Dolphins are paying Josh Rosen over $3 million to be on the practice squad for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year. I mean, that's a wow. That tells you how much the Dolphins just didn't want him, didn't think they need him, didn't want him in the building, couldn't trade him. And for Rosen, he's already getting that money anyway, either way. So why not go to Tampa where you can learn from Arians and Brady, which is pretty cool. So you get to learn from Arians and Brady. That's number one. And then number two, you're able to get the money anyway. And he's able to go to any team. If another team has a need for a backup quarterback or wants him, he's on the practice squad. So he can leave whenever he wants, unless they have him be one of their protected guys in Tampa, which I doubt. So I think it's a really smart decision by Josh Rosen, actually, the way it all unfolds.
Tuck's Takes.
Few other moves include the Lions signing running back Adrian Peterson, the Raiders trading a third-round pick Lynn Bowden to the Dolphins, defensive end Randy Gregory being conditionally reinstated with the Cowboys, and Jason Peters finally agreed to move back to left tackle for the Eagles.
Right. A lot to get to there, Bri. But before I do, I want to make sure all of you really take advantage of this deal from DraftKings right now for a couple different reasons. I mean, number one, you're never going to get a better bet than this. They're giving you Kansas City plus 101 points. They're handing you free money. If you've never made a bet before in your life, get the DraftKings Sportsbook app, put the promo code Ross in, when you make a deposit, place a bet on Kansas City and win that bet, win that money, and then be able to, even if that's the only bet you ever make in your life, you can say, I never lost a bet in my life. I got Kansas City plus 101. Plus, they got this free survivor pool going on right now, which I absolutely love. You can get a share of up to $100 million in giveaways if you sign up for the free survivor pool. So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code ROSS to take advantage of this no-brainer of an offer. That's promo code ROSS to get in on all the action for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You must be 21 or older, New Jersey, PA only. Bonus comprised of a first deposit bonus and a first bet match, each up to $500. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And you're all set. Speaking of the moves you told me, Bri, Adrian Peterson to the Lions makes a lot of sense. Evidently, DeAndre Swift is banged up, so they want another option in addition to Kerryon Johnson. He's got a lot of familiarity. It always goes back to that familiarity, Bri, with Darrell Bevel. So that makes sense. Man, you rarely see this with the Raiders trading Lynn Bowden. I mean, a third-round pick this year, and they traded him for very little. I mean, they thought he could be a good running back from what they saw from him as a quarterback and wide receiver. It didn't work, evidently, during training camp. Wow. I mean, that's called giving up on him quickly. Gregory's conditionally reinstated, but he's got a lot of things he needs to overcome first before he can actually play. And that's really good news for the Eagles about Jason Peters. Really good news. Sounded like, according to Doug Peterson, that Jason Peters just walked into his office and said, I'm ready to play left tackle. And Peterson said, all right, let's do it. So now the Eagles haven't said who the right guard will be. I still think it'll be Matt Pryor, but who knows? They got some other candidates, Nate Herbig, Jack Driscoll. My guess is it would be Pryor, but good news all around for the Philadelphia Eagles at this point. We've got shout-outs, as always, for Pizza Boy Brewing, DynastyFreaks.com, Sporticulture, but also SteakhouseSports.com and Vision Comics with an X.com. So I love it. We're almost full on the I think we're done here patrons. Patreon.com/RTmedia. Make sure you check out today's College Draft Podcast with Emory Hunt and the Even Money Podcast with Steve Fezzik. Other than that, I think we're done here.
Thanks for listening to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Fantasy Feast, Even Money, Business of Sports, and College Draft. All available at Apple Podcasts, RossTucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.